Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 19 today for the USA Grand Prix in Season 1. If you guys did miss the previous one uploaded yesterday, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. But we head into the start of this episode then with a load of money to basically spend on our HQ, and it's the first time we're going to delve into a SPEC 2 upgrade. We've got over $7 million, and all the SPEC 2 upgrades from now on the aero, chassis, and powertrain departments all cost at least $5 million, I think, and then you've got the other kind of departments, marketing and such, where I think the next upgrade on the sponsor, like relations and whatnot, costs like $7.5 million. So from now on, it's going to be a bit of a slower process to build up the cash to make the upgrades. But as it stands right now, we have enough money to invest in something. There's no point waiting around till like the next season. You may as well just get it underway and get the process rolling, even if we don't need the upgrade technically in terms of the R&D tree. So we're going to go ahead, and I've chosen to invest in the chassis department of HQ. $5 million there. It's a big purchase, but they're all going to be that big from now on, so got to get used to spending that much money in one go. And to be fair, we still have about $2 million left over, which we would have taken at the very start of the career, but obviously it's still a decent amount of cash. But in terms of upgrades, you know, we still have to now wait probably a whole episode or two to build up enough cash to purchase another upgrade. But I chose the chassis side because, as you can see, on the chassis side of the R&D tree, we are the weakest. You know, we're the second worst team on the grid for chassis in terms of how lightweight the chassis is, the redistribution of the weight, and the tyre wear and upgrades and whatnot. Whereas the engine and aero side, we're pretty good. You know, I'm not going to get to the maxed out level of those parts of the R&D tree as quick as I think we need to with the chassis. Like into next season, I think that's where we're going to be doing a lot of our spending early on to try and catch up to the other teams, because the other two departments we're completely fine. So that's why I decided to invest in the chassis. So once that upgrade comes in, we'll have a SPEC 2 part of our HQ facility for the very first time. Now, moving on from that and the HQ upgrades, going back to just the actual plain R&D on the car, obviously last episode we found out about the regulation reset. It was going to be on the engine, chassis, and durability. So what you're seeing in the background right now is me adapting as many parts as I can. I was wary of which ones to choose because I didn't know how much R&D points how much I had and how much that would actually allow me to adapt. But as you can plainly see, I've literally adapted nearly every single thing. The only thing that's left over is the one durability upgrade, and then we've actually still got a major chassis weight reduction upgrade pending on the chassis. But once that upgrade comes in, I'm going to have to straight away re-spend half the money or half the points it is worth to just adapt it for next season. So a little bit annoying that kind of way, having to spend it twice in a way to just keep it for next year. But you saw, we had so many resource points because we decided to save up from the very end of 2 episodes ago, I think it was pretty much, because we didn't really spend anything last episode apart from refixing the aero upgrades. So we had a load of points, and so happily we've adapted everything, and we will adapt everything once that chassis upgrade comes through. So into next season, the hope is that the teams around us, our rivals, especially, you know, Renault, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, but obviously we're looking upwards to like Racing Point, McLaren, Red Bull even, they've slipped down, and they're very much level pegging with McLaren Racing Point. The hope is that they plateau or even go down on the R&D chart because they have not been able to adapt all their parts, because clearly they've got a better car, so they're definitely a little bit deeper into the R&D tree than maybe I am. So maybe they just don't have the resource points to adapt everything, whereas I did not have that many upgrades maybe compared to them, and I was able to adapt everything. So happy days in that kind of sense. But we move on then through the week. You saw in the background just choosing the activities there. A lot of sponsor-driven activities as per usual, try and get the acclaim nice and high. But there you go now. As we go on through halfway through this week, that major upgrade for the chassis comes in, but it's now immediately, as soon as it came in, it was orange. So I have to now re-spend some points to adapt that for next season. What's not going to be need to be adapted, what doesn't need to be taken care of, though, is that minor aero upgrade and the drag reduction. And on the aero side of things, like I said previously in the last episode, we're looking really good in terms of that department doesn't need to get reset. And we're very much almost right at the top end of the midfield, going towards, you know, bridging that gap on the aero side. It's just the chassis side where we really need to try and make a big leap into next season. And like I said, that's why I wanted to invest the money into the chassis part of the HQ early doors here. Compared to maybe like the engine or aero, which might have surprised some of you because I've always gone on about, you know, getting the engine nice and good because it's so powerful in this year's game, and the last one, of course, like just pure straight line speed. But that's also going to be helped by having a lightweight chassis. So I feel like we really need to drill into that process on the R&D and get the car as lightweight as possible to help the acceleration out as well. So we're now going to move into an invitational event we have midweek, and this is going to get us some extra acclaim and a little bit of money. Really now, considering the money we're having to spend and the money we're earning every race, the amount of money you get from these invitational events is pretty small, but the acclaim's still there, and it's obviously a nice little breather and break from the usual kind of, with the 2020 car. So we're here for this invitational at the Sochi Autodrome. We literally just were there 2 episodes ago for the Russian Grand Prix. But you can see here we're in the Renault of Fernando Alonso used to drive, and we've got a pursuit challenge. So we've got a load of classic cars, and basically I'm in the fastest car on this race, and so I had to set off a lot later than everyone else. And then the thing is, you just try and catch up because they're in slower cars, so that's why they get the head start. So just going to try and overtake them. We've got 3 laps to do it, but you can see it's quite, there's a reason why they get the head start. It's actually quite easy to catch them, so it's not really much of a... I mean, I guess it might be a challenge on the circuit, but this one was pretty decent, able to just use the advantage of the power we've got as well. Although I will say, now having just driven the 2020 cars and our car, last episode, and then going to this car in the Invitational, these cars feel really stiff now. They might be lightweight, yeah, and they've got that raw engine power and whatnot, and a load of downforce as well, but they feel so stiff compared to the very movable and just drivable cars that you have with the 2020 car. So it's always a bit of a weird feeling doing these invitational events, but that's also why it's a nice little breather. But there you go, we get the extra acclaim, extra money, and now we can move through the rest of the week then through the activities and go on towards the USA GP. But just before that, you may have seen we got an email there from Carl saying that Honda have brought another upgrade, and this is the first time in a long while it's actually a performance upgrade that Honda have brought, because most of the time a lot of the Honda upgrades we've been getting for free from our power unit manufacturer have been all reliability things with the engine, but that's a power upgrade for USA. It's going to come in handy because obviously USA, you want to kind of compromise for Sector 1, but you need some good straight line speed for Sector 2, that long back straight, so that's going to be awesome. And you saw there on the R&D graph, we actually jumped up ahead of Haas and Alfa Romeo, just by a little bit, but we moved ahead of them for the very first time on the engine side, so it's almost a real shame that we've got the reset, because remember, the Honda upgrades, we can't adapt them. We're going to lose those Honda upgrades, so we will be lacking a little bit of power, maybe than more than I want to at the start of next season. But obviously, we're still waiting on that performance patch to make it like real life. I feel like at some point, Cody's need to patch the Ferrari engine, so all of the Ferrari engines should get a nerf at some point in our career. So I would imagine some way through Season 2, we'll see all the Ferrari engine cars move down a peg on the R&D chart just because their engines get nerfed. But speaking about the R&D graph, this is how tight it is. Look at that now. We're slap bang in the middle of that kind of midfield, bridging the gap to Red Bull, because McLaren now with the 3rd best team on the grid by a pixel ahead of Red Bull, ahead of Racing Point. We're there ahead of Alfa Romeo, Renault, and AlphaTauri now. But on the graph, you can barely distinguish where Renault, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, and we are. We're pretty much all in the same pixel, essentially, but I'm just a whisker ahead, apparently, on paper. Obviously, in practice, it's a very, very different thing as we now move through into qualifying, and it's always going to be tough. Qualifying has not been my strongest suit in the F1 game as a whole, but on this year's game, almost like last year, but in a way, I feel like it's got even harder. The AI are very good at qualifying. In the race, yeah, you can, go at them, race pace could be a lot better, but they're just on it. They're so accurate, pinpoint, make no mistakes most of the time in qualifying. And it's hard to even out-qualify them when technically we've got a better car, on the R&D graph. But as I've always maintained, that R&D graph, pretty much after 2-3 episodes, is completely useless in terms of really telling you where the car is, because there's so many factors of slipstream in the race and whatnot, how your car is in a straight line versus the corners. That could play out differently, in practice compared to how it plays out on the R&D chart. So we'll see how it goes. At the moment, though, this is what I'm talking about. Aitken's down in P19. I'm only P17. So even though our car is apparently better than AlphaTauri, Renault, and Alfa Romeo's, still it's not looking like it at the moment around USA. That extra engine power upgrade is coming to use, because I have ran quite high aero. I think 6.6 I think I've ran, so slap bang in the middle for this GP, because I think we need it for Sector 1, but we only qualified in P18. It's actually a very anticlimactic, disappointing qualifying day for us. It is quite tight, though, to be fair. Literally 1/10 or so, and we would have been through into Q2. Magnussen, Giovinazzi, and Ocon just ahead of us. But at the same time, it's also that's a reality slap again, like we had almost at kind of Russia in a case of, let's it looks cool that we're ahead of these teams on the R&D chart, but this is where we are at the moment, clearly. I'm just out-qualifying Aitken just by a bit, but both of us are knocked down Q1, so we still have work to do. I almost feel, though, USA, and I had the same sort of vibe in Japan, but obviously we had a decent race at Japan, but USA, at least in qualifying, I was like, this is almost very much like Silverstone again, of like, you need power around this circuit, but you also need downforce, so it's so hard to find that balance and compromise. I think for us, we obviously just didn't find it amazingly, because a lot of the time I'm a lot further ahead than Aiken, so I still need to find some time. Hopefully I find that rhythm around the circuit during the race maybe, and we speed up as we go on through the Grand Prix. But let's go to Sunday and see how we do.
Here we are then in one of the fastest growing cities in the United States, the fabulous Austin, in the great state of Texas. The circuit itself 14 miles southeast of the city centre and home to the US Grand Prix since 2012. The latest in a long list of iconic tracks to have that honour. We're racing today then in Travis County, Texas, around the 20 corners of the wonderful Circuit of the Americas. We'll be reaching speeds of around 200 miles an hour, and there are plenty of good opportunities to pass, especially through the 2 DRS zones into Turn 1 and the very long back straight into Turn 12. And as always, a man with plenty of racing experience joins me in the commentary box. Today it's Anthony Davidson. Tell me, Ant, you're no stranger to surviving the melee of Turn 1. So how do you keep out of trouble when there's so much going on around you?
There are 3 main things to worry about there, Crofty. Positioning, awareness and discipline. First, you have to put your car in a bit of space and make sure you have room to react to what the others are doing. Then you have to watch your mirrors and listen to the sounds around you to get a sense of where everyone is. And finally, just don't get too greedy. Just because a gap exists doesn't always mean you should go for it.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Good job yesterday from Valtteri Bottas. The Finn starts from pole position, and it's Lewis Hamilton alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Vettel, Max Verstappen, and Sainz, Perez, Stroll, Norris, and Daniel Kvyat, Ocon, Giovinazzi, Kimi Raikkonen, and Magnussen. The owner driver, Ricciardo, Romain Grosjean, and Alexander Albon. They've taken a grid penalty. Russell, Gasly, Aitken, and Nicholas Latifi. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track and get this Grand Prix underway.
So there's a raft of engine penalty upgrades for some people. Albon, Ricciardo, Gasly, all now behind me. That's a great thing for us for the rivalry in game with Ricciardo, that we start ahead of him. And now we're up into P15 on the grid, so decent start there. Only 5 places away now for some points. Strategy-wise, it's going to be a 2-stop either way, just either a more aggressive one or conservative one. 2 sets of soft tires to medium. So my eyes were beaming at that. You guys know me. I don't really like a 1-stop race. I prefer at least a minimum 2-stop race, just to have a bit of a difference of nice strategy changes and some actual, just differences in the race, basically, because a 1-stop, once you've made that stop, it's pretty much that. Like, you can't get yourself out of a sticky situation, or, just things happen. Action happens when there's more than one pit stop in a race, I feel. So I always enjoy when it's a 2-stopper race that we come to in career mode. So USA, looking forward to this one. Be nice and aggressive on those 2 sets of softs, and then equally so on the mediums. And let's hope we can try and turn around that qualifying pace and go for those points-paying positions once again. So we're now going to head on into this race. Round number 19 of this season, the USA GP here in Texas. From P15 on the grid, we go to 5 red lights, and we are off and underway. A lot of wheel spin there for the Haas of Kevin Magnussen. Plenty of wheel spin for us, actually, though, in Gear 4 as we try and get the power down with some overtake mode and getting blocked by Giovinazzi. And both Haas cars go either side of the Alfa Romeo. Very hectic into Turn 1. Some contact made with the Italian, a little bit argy-bargy, and we get through and make one position at least up into P14, but a bit of a messy one and not a great start for us in comparison to the previous few GPs. Unable to find the space in the opening laps. Getting stuck behind Gio and pinned in either side by the Haas cars did not help, but at least we haven't lost a position or whatever. Obviously, generally speaking, in this year's game, you can definitely get much better starts than the AI than ever was possible on last year's game, where you pretty much never gained a position off the start. But now we're looking to overtake Magnussen. He's moving very, very weird. I'm having to move very weird to overtake him as we go around the outside. That was such a weird overtake. I didn't mean to do that overtake, but you saw going into that hairpin corner, he you know, almost defended, but Alta didn't, and I had to wobble out of the way, but that also caused him to also make a bit of an AI mistake and wobble himself there, so that was all a bit messy in terms of just controlling the car, keeping it going in a straight line to get the job done around the outside, and now we've got the clean air, though, to press on and close up to Raikkonen and the Alfa Romeo, and now you're setting, the car looks quick, like, it feels quick right now compared to our competitors around here, so once again, the race car we've got on Sunday is much better than the qualifying one, because here we go, going to go for the dive, overtake mode used, down the inside, no DRS here, so just have to try and get it done under braking, and the Alpha obviously pretty decent in the straight line, so had to try and do it in the brake zone, hasn't quite finished yet. We use some overtake mode down the crest, side by side, and it's just a question of who blinks first, and it was Kimi Raikkonen who did blink that time around, and so we're up into P12 then, so making some good progress now, slow and steady as these laps go on in the opening stage of this Grand Prix. Remember, we're pitting around lap 8 for the first stop, I would say, so still a few more laps to go, but the tyre wear kicking in a little bit. There's high there's a reason why it is a 2-stop here around USA. There is some high tyre wear here, so having to be a little bit cautious on that and make sure we don't get the rear end stepped out, especially a corner like this. Very easy for the rear end to get loose, and waiting for the AI to make some mistakes as well, potentially, as we go on through this first stint, but just all over the back of our former rival, Esteban Ocon. Of course, I'm currently rivals with his teammate, Daniel Ricciardo, but remember, it's just the entire Renault team in general that we're having a fight with, obviously, in the championship, as we now go on the outside of Ocon in the last corner. Very unorthodox place to make a pass, but he was so slow through the last 2 bends, and now it's a drag race as we cross the line for a new lap into towards turn 1. He's still there and going on the inside. He actually goes to, oh, he's made some contact with Kvyat. What is Ocon doing there? He's defending against me and then just torpedoes the torpedo. Absolutely amazing stuff. And now we're going on. A lot of ERS used there, trying to get it done into sector 1. So fine there, literally rubbing sidewalls to sidewall on the left front tyre to his right front tyre, but we get the job done. Mighty close, though. That could have easily been, like, with this contact system on this game, that could have easily been a little spin on the side of his side pod there. You never know in Sector 1. And we like to make things difficult, don't we, for ourselves there. We had to make the move in Sector 1. We couldn't get it done into Turn 1 because, of course, Ocon had to defend so hard. He torpedoed Kvyat. Absolutely insane stuff there as we overtake the man in question there in the AlphaTauri. That was insane. Like, I was just looking to overtake Ocon. I was squeezing him to the left, and I thought, okay, he's going to outbrake me here, so I have to maybe try something into the end of this little straight here, and maybe going on into Sector 1. Didn't think he was going to try and overtake the AlphaTauri either, or not even overtake him, just try and take him out, basically, because that wasn't really an overtaking attempt, really. He was never making that corner on the inside of the AlphaTauri. But we move on then through this Grand Prix. Lap number 9 this is, and we're coming in. So 1 lap longer than I thought there would be, but that was actually our previous, already orchestrated pit stop window was lap 9, actually, not lap 8. So coming in, the tyres were going off a little bit, I could tell, in the last sector, to be fair. So looking forward to these new boots. But as we come in, the people around us, look at the top left there, Sainz on mediums, Perez on the hard tyre, sorry, not on mediums, Perez on mediums, and Sainz on mediums up ahead of us. We're on the soft tyres, so that McLaren and Racing Point, they're going to the end then, I would say. They're trying a 1-stop, unless they're going to do a kind of a weird 2-stop where they're going like softs, hards, and then softs, because remember, one of the strategies my team were giving me were soft, hard, so they could be doing that, they're just switching it, but I have a hunch these two ahead of us are on a 1-stop, so we're on 2 compound softer now, and you can tell, look at the closing speed here in all the corner, every corner, it's like we're in a Mercedes car and they're like in a Haas car. That's the level of performance difference here because of the tyres, and so we've got to be aggressive now, because if these guys are doing a 1-stop, I have to get a whole pit stop ahead of these guys to make this strategy work, or I have to obviously go and overtake them again once we make that second pit stop in this Grand Prix. So here we are, right on the back of Perez, DRS open, a lot of ERS having to be used there to try and get past that Mercedes power Racing Point, or the pink Mercedes to be fair as well. We get it done though, up into P14, using the tyre grip obviously in Sector 1 to close up, then the straight line speed, get it done with DRS. But up ahead of us, Aitken and Gasly holding up one Max Verstappen as well, and as we get very close to Carlos Sainz's rear end. We tap him a little bit as well as he's so slow compared to us. You know, those hard tyres are so bad compared to the softs. And here we go on the inside of the double or triple right-hander there. A bit of ERS use as well. Tactical overtake mode use mid-corner. And then now down the inside of Verstappen. Once again, we find ourselves fighting the Red Bull and the Dutchman. It's really odd. The Red Bull cars have really fallen away. They've got no race pace. They've got some okay qualifying pace, but they've got no race pace now here in this career mode season of ours. To be fair, though, Verstappen dives it back down the inside of me, so maybe under braking, he's still got the, obviously, performance difference, but we squeeze them out, use the overtake mode with a faster Honda-powered car compared to him, but he got held up massively by Gasly and Aitken. That, sorted me out quite a lot there, because we wouldn't have closed up as much as we did if it weren't for Gasly and Aitken. But then off that last corner you saw, he just had no pace there. So once again, we've overtaken Verstappen like we did last episode, the Japanese Grand Prix. So I don't know. I don't want to say into Season 2, we could see Red Bull really struggle if they don't adapt enough parts. They could really struggle. They could definitely be a midfield team in our Season 2 of this career mode. Very much unlike maybe in real life, where Ferrari are maybe the kind of midfield team, but obviously even Red Bull had an off day at the Hungarian GP a little bit in qualifying, and Albon's just being very unlucky with the engine penalties he's had, obviously, because he started behind us in this Grand Prix. You're now watching later on this Grand Prix, catching up to Leclerc, dropping Verstappen. Leclerc ahead of us, the Ferrari, on a set of hard tyres. So even the Ferrari, even though obviously it's a Ferrari, they're better than us on the R&D chart, they've got the better car. Because of the tyre difference, 2 whole compounds, even I'm catching them, and Leclerc's looking so slow on that entry point there. So really enjoying this. We're going to have to push even harder, because we are going to obviously pit again, and at the moment as it stands, we might come out in like P10 or 11 once we've made the pit stop. So we are going to have to push very hard just to get like the last points, probably. Like, even though we're overtaking a Ferrari here very easily for, what is it, P4 or 5 in this GP as it stands, we're racing for like, P10 and P9 still in this Grand Prix. But to be honest, I'm not really too fast, because I'm having a lot of fun here. It was mega fun to overtake Verstappen and then actually close up to a Ferrari, and just like, also when we came out straight out of the pits, well, the way we caught up to Perez was it just felt awesome. It's the first time in like the first time in the season really that I felt like, what, we've actually got a quick car here, even though it's a little bit of a placebo effect, because it's only fast because of our tyres compared to everyone else. But it's going to be a long while till we actually feel like this every single race, every single scenario. That maxed out my team car that I hope it will get towards season 3 or 4 or whatever, still a long way away in terms of races and episodes to do. So it was a very fun experience doing this 2-stop, I must say, even though we're making that second pit stop now onto a set of medium tyres. We've got 9 laps to go in this Grand Prix, so we're actually going to be on the medium tyres for less than we were on the softs, which is pretty nice, to be fair. Went very aggressive on the soft tyres then on the usage. But we're out now in P8, I think that is, just ahead of Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, and I believe he is on a set of hard tyres. So in the previous stint, we overtook him and pulled away from him on the same tyre, on the soft tyres. But here, he's on the hards, we're on the mediums. He's catching up to us a little bit. He's got DRS, so I was a little bit wary here. Had to use some ERS to make sure we stay ahead of him. You can see I've got him covered in a straight line. But now, doubly so, we should be able to press ahead, push away from him. We're going to go and lean mixture in Sector 3 from now on, save the fuel here, use rich mix in Sectors 1 and 2, and try and push on and catch those 2 Racing Point cars. Stroll and Perez, they're on the hards. They've done a 1-stop. They're on that same set of hard tyres they were on since that first round of pit stop. So we should be able to close up, and we do. Only 2 laps later it's taken. We've closed up what was a almost 6-second gap, I think it was, or at least 5 seconds in 2 laps. We've closed up here to Stroll. That's, due to my pace and also the lack of pace he's showing on those hards that are very worn. He's been on that set since now, what, lap 9 or 10? I think Stroll came in lap 10 and Perez lap 9. So a long time compared to us on mediums, only 3 laps here. So now pushing hard, we've pulled the gap away from Verstappen to 3 seconds as well, using that tyre advantage. So now looking good for maybe P7. We just got to try and be patient, get the job done on the straight basis, because we'll do all the catching up here in Sector 1, and then I think pretty much we'll catch him literally like now, going towards that hairpin and basically set it up on the back straight. But we've got a decent amount of ERS to play around with. The next car along is Sergio Perez. Now, I would love to try and catch him, but he's a further 3 seconds. And, as we start to push away from Stroll, hopefully, we will start feeling a little bit of tyre wear, and so maybe we won't start catching them as quickly. So let's just see. But first and foremost, have to get this done in straight line, having to use a lot of ERS, to be honest, like pretty much half the straight, deploying it, because that Racing Point car is still so quick in a straight line. He goes very defensive, and to be fair to Stroll, puts up a decent fight mid-corner to keep me going, and have to really try and get that done on the exit. But obviously then the tyre advantage will come into play up into P7, and now we'll try our best to push after Sergio Perez. But unfortunately, like I said, the tyre will kick in for us a little bit, and also Perez was that little bit further away in terms of we had to get the job done on Stroll, and it was a further 3 seconds to get the job done. Unfortunately, just couldn't come. You can see we have closed up a little bit, 2.5. but it just wasn't enough. So we're going to have to accept that P7 position. As you can see, having a little bit of a tank slapper there, moment there on the rear end as the concentration goes right at the end of this Grand Prix. Hamilton wins this one, so I'm pretty sure that's going to be really good news for him in the championship because he won the Japanese Grand Prix as well. So back-to-back victories for him in his championship fight with Charles Leclerc. Obviously, we haven't really been paying too much attention to the AI battle, but that is a battle to watch out for as we go on towards the end of the season. But here we are then, the USA GP, and we're going to finish up in our lucky number P7 slot there. We can be happy about that race as we run out of fuel on the line. I think we can be happy about that. You know, we qualified really low yet again, and again the race car was much better. A 2-stop though today. We possibly may have gotten a higher position if we did a 1-stop, but I had a lot of fun with the 2-stop, so I'm glad we did it and we had some fun up there.
So, another fantastic victory for the Silver Arrows. So, Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
Well, this was a real team victory. They put together a solid strategy today that appeared well suited to the conditions out on track. The driver did everything that was expected of them in the moment to really execute the team's plan to perfection, a shining example of how F1 really is a team sport.
After an excellent performance at the Grand Prix, I'm sure there'll be plenty of celebrations tonight amongst the Mercedes team, and they certainly deserve it.
Alright, so there we have it. Once again, beating both Red Bull cars. Obviously, Albon had a penalty, grid penalty, but we beat Verstappen fair and square. That Red Bull car, you know, it's now slower than McLaren on paper on the R&D, but in reality, when we get to the races, they've actually got no race pace. Like, they're worse than us. They're worse than even our rivals like Renault, AlphaTauri. Like, they're only just about limping home for, like, 9th place. You know, Verstappen only was just ahead of Kvyat, but behind Stroll, and Albon was, you know, having to fight back through the likes of Renault and Alfa Romeo. So, very baffling. It's going to be very interesting to see in Season 2 how Red Bull stack up. I actually fear for them quite a lot if they don't have a good R&D regulation adaptation period. In terms of us then for the championship, we actually get up into P10 in the Drivers' Championship, which is quite nice. I've not really been focusing too much on the Drivers' Championship, you know, verbally to you guys so far this season because it's very early days. We're nowhere near the fight, so why do I really care that much about where we finish? But to be fair, to be in the top 10 on our debut season is really, really awesome. You know, being very consistent, especially in the last few episodes since the rafter upgrades have come in. We've been very, very consistent scoring those points, just, you know, from, you know, ranging from even P10 up to P7. Obviously, we had the really amazing races like Singapore as well, where we get like P4, but it's been a decent one. So if we can finish out in P10, I'll be really happy about that in the Drivers' Championship individually. And then as a team, here we are. We have overtaken Renault in the Constructors' Championship up into P6. That is amazing. I could not have believed we would be in this position at the start of the season. I thought it was going to be a real struggle just to fight for maybe P8 there with AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo, but to now be fighting Renault and AlphaTauri for that P6 slot. Obviously, AlphaTauri were more in a fight with Renault, but now we've kind of become that kind of fighter, and to do it now with still a few races to go is really great. But obviously, Renault, they have been very quick at times this season, so let's not rest on our laurels. There's still work to do in the remaining races to make sure we finish ahead of them. But we get the rivalry points on Dan Ricciardo, which is a really important thing for us for that extra claim, and we get just over 1 million in payouts. I don't know what changed from this race to last race, where we got the same sponsor goals, but this time we did get just over 1 million. I'm not too sure how they worked that one out, but we just got over 1 million in bonuses. Very nice indeed. So that brings our total pot to 6.2 million, so we could technically buy another tier 2 upgrade next episode, which is very good news for us. So I think we're going to go ahead and do that because we may as well start investing for next year essentially when we want to do those extra R&D updates. So guys, if you did enjoy that USA GP, thoroughly enjoyable with the 2-stop, then be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been aarava. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of the day. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.